welcome.
Should your intro sound always be the cracking of the can?
Like we could make like a theme song out of this. 1, 2, 3. You should get headphones because...
Did you hear the bubbles? It's beautiful.
Oh, yeah, just... We're going to start this off. At the start of each episode, we would like to sample a drink. Our drinks are going to either be beers or a carbonated beverage, which could include water, sodas, energy drinks, you name it. Today, Gary can introduce us. What do we got?
We have a lovely Spindrift Island Punch. How do they describe this? Real squeezed fruit.
The thing I love about Spindrift, real fruit. None of that crap in it. I mean, look at the ingredient list. Simple.
That is nice.
Simple.
Carbonated water, for those of you listening at home. Yeah. Carbonated water, guava puree, passion fruit juice, orange juice, citric acid. That is as simple as it gets.
It's so simple. Let's get into this. We can't take up too much time here. This is just to kick it off. I think I'm just going to give you a quick 15-second 1 to 10 rating. I'm going to give this an 8.4. I think this is, I'm biased, but personally one of my favorite sparkling waters. The flavor pops for so little calories.
Yeah, we do. It is not a 0-calorie drink. It is a 13-calorie drink.
Good point. 2 grams of sugar.
We have to put it in the category of LaCroix, right? LaCroix is sort of the king, the elephant in the room, if you will, when it comes to carbonated drinks, right? So more flavorful than LaCroix, which, of course,
for sure,
is like drinking, club soda while somebody eats a fruit in the next room. I like LaCroix, but that's what it's like, right?
A fruit in the next room.
Yeah.
I always thought LaCroix was like you drove a truck with lemons in it. But the lemons weren't put into the soda. It was just like in the truck while you drove it.
While you drink the club soda in the truck.
Yeah, and then they put it in the grocery store, and it's like, oh, it kind of tastes.
Yeah.
I like that.
More flavor here, though, of course.
Yeah. Rating, please. Up to 10.
I would give it, this particular flavor, I would give it probably an 8. Yeah.
An 8?
It's a little more citrusy than I expected, though the guava... Sort of, we're getting like full foodie here.
Yeah.
But the guava aftertones are nice.
They are nice. It carries nice. All right. Well, beautiful. So Gary Arnold here today. If you have a title next to your name, I don't think we're going to do titles.
Yeah, MD. No.
Yeah, but we have Gary Arnold. Tell me what. Sure, if you put a title next to your name, and it could be Dad, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, give us a little bio.
Yeah, I am a jack of all nerds, master of none. I dabble in all things nerd, but professionally, I'm a marketer, just marketing guy. I've headed up marketing departments for many, many years now, and that's how we know each other is from the marketing world. So that's the blend of both dad, husband, nerd, and marketer.
And most importantly, I'm sure you would agree, Dad. And how many kids?
3 kids, 3 boys.
Okay.
Yep.
And we're similar age. Both, we met each other in Logan.
Yep, up at Utah State.
Utah State guy.
Yep.
And Gary is now working in the Salt Lake area.
Indeed.
And Master of Nerds, quick bio on that. What are we talking? Are we talking nerdy, like computer nerdy? We talking...
I've dabbled in almost all things nerd over the years of my life, but in particular, I claim Lord of the Rings and Star Wars as my
top
big ones.
nerdy things.
Yeah.
And give us a sample of how nerdy you are.
Well, I mean,
Lord of the Rings.
I did today come across a social media post where somebody was claiming what the gender of the moon was.
Gender of the moon,
which is not, obviously it's not a real thing. The moon is made of cheese, as we all know. But if the moon did have a gender, it would be male, because in Lord of the Rings we learned that the moon is male gendered, and it had names. And so, to be fair, I did have to go to the Lord of the Rings Wikipedia to look up the names. I didn't know them off the top of my head. I'm not quite that level. But I did go and respond on this social media post, just so you know, according to Tolkien's Legendarium, the moon is male. These are its names.
Wow. And it had several.
Yeah, it depends on the language, right? Because Lord of the Rings is all about languages, and so it just depends on which language you're referencing.
And how many languages does Lord of the Rings have?
There's like the real diehards might come after me, but I think there's like 3 versions of Elvish.
Wow.
There's a
I had no
dwarf
idea.
language, and yeah, it all started with language for J.R.R. Tolkien. That
And
was
the moon is gendered.
indeed
I-
the sun is female and the moon is male.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
I would call myself a nerd, but that is next level
it's a bit nerdy.
for sure. The gender, the languages. I love it. Thank you for the intro, Gary. This is our second episode. Honored to have Gary here. He's someone I've looked up to who we worked together since we were younger, post Utah State. I feel like the thing I love about Gary is he's always got just a great attitude of calmness about him. We've had some stressful situations together where cars have been almost towed off of chutes. I was yelling at a guy. It got nasty. And for like work life environment, but Gary's always he's cool. He's gone through some stuff and he keeps a cool attitude. So I just got to give you a shout out.
Appreciate that.
That's one of the many reasons. Also, I'm nerdy. I like nerdy stuff that I wanted to have Gary on here. And he's just been a marketing pro, which it's fun to, we cross paths and we work together from time to time. So a little bit about Gary.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, let's get into this. I'm new. I apologize. I'm not the greatest podcast host, but this is fun.
It's a skill. It's developed.
Yeah.
I did a podcast at my last job, and it did not just turn on overnight.
Yeah.
You had to get the rhythm going. So I'm here with you. It's a journey.
Let me start with that. What podcast hosting? Any tips for me as we get into this? Because I want people to enjoy listening to this, and I don't want it just to be some boring business crap that's like middle-aged white dudes be like, yeah, it'll really help my career. And
yeah, what's the joke? What do you call a group of middle-aged white dudes?
what do you call them?
A podcast.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I am. But what are some tips? How do I?
Yeah, for podcasting, I mean, it's developing that sort of conversational flow, which some people have naturally, others you have to develop. I'm not saying that I just have that naturally. I don't.
You're great.
The guests are a big factor as well. And again, not here to toot my horn, but when I podcasted, it was really about letting the guest shine, if that's the type of podcast. Now, there are certain podcasts where it's, for example, you are the pillar of the podcast, and it runs off of your personality.
Yeah.
There's different techniques and approaches to that kind of podcast versus a guest-driven podcast where you want to prep your guest, you want to let them know what they're getting into, but also, we would have recurring guests on the podcast that I did back at this IT company, and it was really letting their expertise shine.
Sure.
And we sort of rested the podcast on that fact that their expertise was credible, it was strong, and that they can convey it in a very compelling way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I do want to rest. I think what you said, rest on the guests and lean into. I want to hear your story. Mm-hmm. I want to hear like deeper level responses. We got to keep this. It's not just surface thing on like how you made your career great on the surface. These are the steps I did, and I got my interview. Like I hope we can go a little layer deeper on tips, like hard things that I don't think we talk about too much in balancing work and life. And then like really the most important things to you on mistakes or progress you made in your career. So I think that's what I'm looking for. Hopefully we can get, some just like deeper into it there.
Yeah.
You know
let's
what I
get
mean?
tactical, as it were.
Let's get into it. So all right. Number one, this is something I think is a question that's meaningful to me. The biggest mistake, no matter how dirty this is, confess, let it out.
Yeah.
Biggest mistake you've made in work or your business.
Yeah, professional setting.
Tell me, to share a little story, and like what did you learn from that? What'd you take from it?
Yeah. So this is a good question, and this goes back to we had worked on some projects together when I was at this company. And I guess, you can look me up on LinkedIn. I don't need to like hide where I was at or anything like that. So this was
not like you got let go for some
Yeah,
days.
yeah. So this was when I was at, and I'm fully, it can be tough sometimes to own up to your mistakes, and there are small mistakes. Like, as marketers, like you'll send an email with a typo. Like,
Yeah.
stuff like that happens all the time. But more fundamentally, when I was at Fluent, which is a home security company, home automation, home alarms, like unto Vivint, the name brand here in Utah.
Right.
Fluent was very similar. I worked on the marketing side, and it wasn't like a singular mistake, but it was sort of a mindset that I let myself get into that got me fundamentally sort of into trouble, I guess you could say. And it really, at the end of the day, it caused me to basically almost get let go from that job.
Okay.
They sort of gently showed me the door due to, you could argue a year or more's worth of heading down the wrong path. And I think it was, there were a lot of factors. I don't want to play the blame game of like, oh, well, poor management or poor leaders, or I didn't have a good manager, and then, that could be a factor. But at the end of the day, you have to take ownership for your own direction in your career and in your life. And I had not taken proactive control of the direction of my career and of my ongoing work. I had become passive. And arguably even lazy in my job, and that's not a good place to be in.
Yeah.
And it can often be very visible to other people, and it had become that way. And it had become that way to the point where even when I tried to turn it around, and I would argue did an okay job turning it around, it was kind of too little, too late. So again, I think how I would sum up the biggest mistake that I made in those days that nearly had a catastrophic impact on me. Luckily, I was able to pivot. Luckily, I was able to, wake up and move into a new job and change things. But it all started with not having the proactive mindset and sort of waking up to I have to take control of my situation and make the most of it.
Dude, I don't want to interrupt you.
No.
I want to ask, and catastrophic. Let's get dark here.
Yeah. No.
Catastrophic.
Yeah. So what that entailed was, I was approached at this job saying, "Hey, we're not happy with your performance. We're not happy with what you're delivering. You need to step it up." And great, I need to. Obviously, I need to step it up. Regardless of that stepping up, though, the door was then opened for me to leave. Like it was inevitable at some point. However, I had just had my second child. We had just signed papers on a home. And so,
the weight was heavy.
Yeah, I don't what do I need to back out of the home I'm about to sign on? Like that crossed my mind. Like maybe I need to not sign on this house because maybe I won't have a job in a month.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there are far worse situations that people find themselves in. But at the time,
heavy,
it was heavy. Existential in a way. Like, oh my gosh, I'd have to get my shit together. I don't know if we swear on this podcast.
Yeah, we swear.
I have to get my shit together, or it's going to be really bad for me and my family now.
Yeah.
So it was a good wake up call.
Oh, dude, I want to cheers to you because I know that's such a hard. I really, really appreciate your vulnerability and what I love about you and what I hope to emulate is just being vulnerable and to realize, hey, I can blame people, but this is a problem that ultimately I owned up to. I just massive respect to that. I think maybe 90% is too much, but I think a lot of the people I meet, it's so easy to blame. It's so easy to blame. And I did that. I look back on some of my first, big jobs. I worked at iFit and, had bosses that sometimes I didn't agree with or whatever. And it's so easy to blame them. And it's so easy to look at that and not even realize that situation you're talking about of just hey, I was being lazy or I was. And so just props to you for, I think that's a massive strength. And when you realize that, it just helps your work life so much, it's such a big shift to get through that, that first wall. And what did you take from, it's dark, it's painful. What do you feel that you learned? What do you feel you took from it?
Yeah, it does come back to that theme you've just alluded. Excuse me. That theme that you just alluded to, and that I mentioned of kind of ownership, and it can be hard to grasp that concept as like a personal philosophy unless you've either seen it emulated or you have it thrust upon you. But it really is, I needed to take control of, and I've said this before, so I'm kind of repeating myself, take control of my own destiny, right? That's sort of maybe a little cliche.
And so how did you do it? I mean, from an outsider's perspective, I'm like, you did it. You made it through.
Yeah. I mean, while I had been given the notice that like you will be let go in X months' time, obviously I'm now on the job hunt. And even back then, this was years ago, the job market for marketers can be very competitive. I mean, I applied at that time to probably over 200 different listings.
Wow.
And this was before remote work, right? But I was still applying like out of state. I'll move my family if I have to because I need a job, right?
Yeah.
So and that's obviously its own story of stress and a little bit of perseverance, like making it through that. I was fortunate to be able to get the interview and the job that I ended up getting at Executech. And I knew starting there, I wanted things to be different. Things had to be different. I felt in that role, an additional layer of expectations, and that part of that I had put upon myself. Like, it's going to be different this time. I'm not going to fall into the same habits and the same traps and the same sort of mindset that had got me in trouble before. And I intentionally set out that way and set out on that right foot with myself and set out on that right foot with what I perceived my employer, and things fell into place and went well from there.
Nice. Oh, well, I love that advice but just even the vulnerability in that thought process, I think is the most important thing I love that. I love that. And then right into that question then leads like, would you say that's also what's brought you the most success, or what do you feel? Give us a real a tip here. I'm looking for some tangible advice too, because I think it's easy to give like, work hard.
Right.
Or I don't know, some things that come to mind. Yeah, make a nice resume. Whatever. What do you feel like, is the number one thing that's helped you succeed? You made it through those dark times and
Yeah, one is a little bit of the theme I've alluded to here is an intentionality. So being intentional about how you approach your career. And here's the nerdy reference. If you think about when you make, for example, a D&D character or a character in a video game, right? I know, super nerdy. But you're spinning up this new character, and you get to maybe choose their appearance, and you get to choose their attributes, and maybe you even build a backstory for this person. And this is true when you're writing a character, right? That's not that much different from an exercise you can do on yourself. What kind of skills, you take stock, what kind of skills do I currently have, and what are the gaps that are needed for my next job or my next role and position? If I want to elevate myself into a leadership position, what skills am I lacking? And what knowledge am I lacking in those areas? I had another, and maybe my career is a little bit of a theme of pivots. But at Executech, there was another sort of crossroads that the CEO had a perception of me and of my role that wasn't totally incorrect, but gave me pause and be like, well, wait a minute, I'm not. And in this case, it was like, you're the branding guy. Oh, you do the creative and colorful and cool stuff. And let's be clear, that's an important and key part of marketing. But I was like, well, now hold on. I don't want to be just the pretty pictures and swag guy.
Doing some designing and
right. Yeah, and to be clear, I'm also not a designer by trade. So that's like, well, you're putting me into a box that I'm not even technically qualified to fully be in. So this was troubling. And it was one of those, I need to take control of the narrative and see, okay, well, marketing is so much more than this. And I was doing so much more, but clearly there was a disconnect in the perception of what I was doing. So I both had to close that perception gap and level myself up skills or knowledge-wise to ensure that, because I want to be a marketing leader.
Yeah.
There are folks that want to specialize, whatever field they may be in, and marketing folks can specialize into certain fields, which is great. There's a need for specialists. I wanted to generalize so that I could be positioned to be in a leadership position. And I had to make that call at that pivot point to intentionally start shaping, these are the skill sets, these are the mindsets that I need to adopt in order to be positioned well as a
Yeah.
leader.
So, I mean, just I assume. So what are you doing like with your boss on the day? Are you saying, "Hey, I want to communicate like I'm focusing on marketing campaigns. Here's some data. Here's some actual educating your boss, telling him this is what I'm doing. This is why you have to pitch him essentially, right? I mean, tell me some of like concrete things you're doing there.
Totally. And it was kind of, as you alluded to, it was kind of those tactical examples. It was, okay, the gap that I'm not providing is this metrics and performance side of marketing. I had those metrics. I had been doing them, but it wasn't being communicated. And that's a huge lesson, I think, for anybody in any role is communication and managing up. It's critical in any role, in any position. You guys, agency, like communication up and down and across all the ways is so critical. So taking control of that communication is critical. And then, tactically it was getting more into the tactics and weeds of the metrics, getting more aligned in this case with sales and going back to ultimately what are business metrics, not just marketing metrics, but business metrics. There's a phrase, I did not coin this, I can't take credit for it, but at the end of the day, we're all business people. I happen to specialize in marketing and apply a marketing skill set, but at the end of the day, it's towards business outcomes and business goals.
Growing the business.
Yeah, and that's true of any role, I believe.
Okay. So, but number one thing, concrete advice, takeaway there, your communication, you're pitching, you're educating your boss, you're educating your team, you're helping them see metrics, see data. And as a marketing person, obviously that's your experience and career. It's specifically showing marketing campaigns, data, numbers. Yeah.
Yep.
No, that's good advice. I think it's easy to forget and feel like, oh, yeah, my boss, especially at bigger companies, my boss knows the value I'm bringing. And it's like, I don't think they even know. They hired you for some reasons, but they don't know what you can do. And I don't care how good your interview process is. You're not going to go through every skill set and go through 6 different marketing campaigns. And, so that's great advice. Yeah. Okay, one of my last questions here. This one is a passion of mine, and I just love hearing advice on. We're talking work here, but I think there's a lot more important things to life than work, and sometimes, working is just you're doing it because you need to pay the mortgage or you're in a bad situation. And, we haven't talked about your passion for your job, and I don't know truly how much passion you have. That's, I think, a whole nother topic. But, generally I would say life is more important. And by life, I mean when you clock out of work or when you're balancing anything outside of work. My question is, how do you balance work life? What's some advice you'd give the people on balancing work and life? Because I need that advice.
Yeah. I mean, and look, I'm a huge advocate for remote work and working from home, which kind of improves, but also can make things harder when it comes to work-life balance.
Got mixed emotion on that.
Exactly.
To be honest.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's a little bit of our hot take right there.
Maybe that's our question. I think that might be it. Well, I like that one. That's a hot take. Okay, sorry. So continue. You've got mixed emotion.
Because on the one hand, you're at home. Like,
yep.
There's the home balance. It's just built right in. But then obviously you have literally taken your work home with you.
Yep.
And we don't need to hash all the life hacks and the influencer tips and tricks and things, but there is some truth to have a distinct space for your work, so that you can leave it behind. Those kinds of things. Like, to me, I work in my basement. If I walk up the stairs, it's really not work time anymore.
No, I think that's a powerful tip. It's obvious and you hear it a lot, but I think that's very true. Literally, just like the stairs being the separation.
Yep,
100%.
And not to get too maybe spiritual or metaphysical here, but what you prioritize is what will be important and what will what's the words here? What will manifest for you?
Yeah.
If your life balance is what's most important to you, you will find the time for it.
Yeah.
If work is what's most important to you, it will find its time and it will drag you back. And I want to be clear, I don't think there's shame in one or the other. Some people are in stages of life where career does need to take a weighted priority for whatever reason. Maybe it's just our passions naturally ebb and flow, I believe, as humans. And sometimes you will be more passionate for your work and want to give more time to it. And that does come at the expense of other things.
Totally.
And sometimes that passion will ebb and will be back towards regular things of your life. And I think recognizing that is important in that balance. That like sometimes, I've traveled a lot this year, as example, for my job, and it's been a little bit of a shift for my family.
Yeah.
And, and that can be a challenge, but we've managed those expectations and that timing in a way that it hasn't been overly burdensome on my family for me to travel more than I have, the quantity that I have. But for others, like it does become overly burdensome, and so you do need to dial back. And so it's really practicing that self-awareness. And again, unintentional theme of this is intentionality, being intentional about how you direct your attention and your time.
Yeah. And so is it fair to summarize that almost with being aware? Just being, because when I listen to you here, part of me feels a little bit guilty of my past. I, had many years where it was just a grind, and I, maybe unintentionally, just let that control and work. I mean, sun up to sundown.
Yeah.
To the point where it definitely put strain on my wife, my family, my kids. And part of me is like, I lost time there, and part of me regrets it. But then at the same time, it ebbs and flows, and there's different seasons, and you make me feel a little bit better because I'm like, sometimes that season of life required it.
Yep.
So how can I be then? I gotta ask then, how can I be intentional? Because you're making me feel like, realize that, right? Realize that intention of I am letting work pull me. Is it just realizing it? Then you can better control? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, there's maybe this is going a little off the rails, but there's this idea that I came across of when we prioritize something, it means we're saying no to literally infinite number of things. Yeah. Right? There are literally an infinite number of things that we could spend our time or attention on. And by saying yes to one thing, it means saying no to literally everything else. And I think we just need to embrace and feel confident in saying yes to the one thing and saying no to the other things. And maybe the balance is, it can be day by day. Today, work is taking the extra hour or two. And that means no to, and it sounds terrible, it means no to hanging out with my kids tonight.
Yeah.
But tomorrow, I'm saying no to work thing.
Yeah.
And the 2 hours are coming back.
Focus the intentionality.
Yeah. And there has to be a balance, and like easier said than done. That's kind of the whole struggle here is how do I find the balance? And, maybe you can take stock, maybe it is day by day, maybe it is month by month, but it is, I think, that I just keep saying the word, that intentionality, being aware of the situation and knowing that there are ebbs and flows. It's something my wife and I talk about a lot, as she is way more busy than I am because she picks up so many other projects and initiatives and things that she does. And I tell her, like, look, you've got like 6 things on your plate. Thing number 1 is dominating you this week. And so that means things 4 through 6 are all taking the back burner.
Yeah.
And that's okay. We can partner and help offset each other when those ebbs and flows come in.
Yeah, I love it. So I think for me, I'm taking it's okay. First off, just being more intentional with your mindset, and then understanding it's okay that today I have to say no to my kids, and I'm intentionally just going to focus there, but then I take stock the next day. I like the idea of just thinking more that way on a daily basis to like evaluate what you're saying no to. Because sometimes it sounds simple, but sometimes you don't think about what you're saying no to.
Totally.
You're like, I got to do this thing.
You start spending time on social media, and what have you said no to
you
accidentally?
Said no to a lot.
Yeah.
You said to precious time. Like, this is a stupid comparison, but what a common trap. Swipe through the phone or watch some Great British Baking Show. I'd rather watch GBB I said no to watching that though by scrolling through social media.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's hard to look at yourself and say, I said no to
Right.
all of that.
And again, my hope is that there's an unlock of there's not like shame in like
Yeah,
choosing
not
social
shaming
media.
yourself.
It's okay to choose to scroll through social media. Sometimes you just want it
Yeah.
feels good on the brain or whatever. But try and make sure it's a semi-intentional choice. It's okay
Yeah.
to sometimes choose the lazy option or the work option or the kid option,
Right.
but make sure it's a choice and not just a default.
Yeah. Just a mind numbing
Yep.
hold.
Yep.
Yeah. Amen. Oh, that was good. I love, yeah, I thought, and you said like deeper spiritualness last thing. I mean, you said
I
like,
guess that's where we went.
yeah, I mean, that was good. Okay. I'm going to switch it up. Let's switch it up because you brought up work from home. Okay, we'll do 2. Whatever. It's our first one. Number 1, we're calling this the hot topic to wrap it up. We can't debate on this long. It has to be a yes or a no.
All right.
I mean, we might even start some polling here just to see like what the people really say. Lord of the Rings, Amazon series. What is that even called?
Rings of Power.
Rings of Power. Is it a season 1 and they're on season 2 right now?
Season 2 finished.
Season 2 finished. Should I watch it? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. I don't want to break my own rules. I'm going to say yes because that's all. I can't dive too deep.
If
fence,
it's just a yes or no, then yeah, that's all.
we
I mean, we
can't-
can explain
we can't
ourselves,
get into
but
this
that's
too
not
much.
the rule. Right?
Work from home. Question number 2. We can do what we want. This is our second episode.
It's your podcast. You can do what
We're
you
making
want.
this up. Work from home. This is a controversial one. I mean, look, you've got any news. I read it yesterday. Amazon is calling. Maybe it was just like a clickbait thing.
No. I think it's
Is it
it's
real?
a callback. Yeah.
Amazon is calling every team member back to office. There's a date.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got. Yeah, I've got some friends and family who work at Pluralsight. Super cool, flexible, hybridness. You've got full remote. We all know. Are you taking? Oh man, what is the question? Do you prefer work from home, or in office, or should the question be, do you believe work from home is a good thing? Yes or no? That's a
Or
little
you
more
could
controversial.
even phrase it: is return to office a good move?
Is return to office a good move? And return to office is
What you just described as Amazon.
You have to be
many
there
others are doing is
5
you
days a
have to
week.
come in, and we could even make it more nuanced and yet more hot. Return to office to say 3 days a week. Maybe any sort of you're remote now you must come in.
I like that because that's a little more specific.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're a company. It's 2024. We've been all remote with the COVID stuff. COVID stuff's going away. We sent out an announcement this week. Hybrid. You've been hybrid or fully remote, and they call back for full-time work from office. Are you supporting that decision or are you against that decision?
Strong against.
People are going to hate me. I think I'm for.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the business owner.
Yeah. But if
I mean, do we get? Yeah, I mean, if we don't
okay,
get to
we
explain
can
ourselves.
explain
we
in a
just
couple
have
of
to,
seconds because
justify
if you've gone that and then to do the 180, I almost come back to what you're saying, because the fact that you did a fully remote thing or a hybrid thing, and then all of a sudden you just switch a Ruski. Part of me is like, I might be back on your train.
How many people under this hypothetical scenario have you hired during this time of fully remote who kind of work under the assumption of fully remote? And now, JK, we're all back.
At our company, we've gone full in office, and we're slowly transitioning into some work from home. And we actually we only did work from home for about 3 months
During
over
the height,
COVID.
yeah.
During the we're losing work, everything's horrible, jobs canceled for months.
Yeah.
But other than that, we've kind of been the opposite. But my prior life was a lot of work from home. So, yeah.
Look, at the end of the day, my take, which shouldn't be surprised because hopefully I've come off as a fairly nuanced this whole time.
Yeah.
This take, of course, and maybe it's not that nuanced, is like business leaders and owners should provide the flexibility to their workforce.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who legitimately want to work in an office 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Frontline employees of all kinds, shapes and sizes, B2B, B2C, you name it. They want to work full-time in an office. If that's the desire of their hearts, let them have it.
Yeah.
But there's also most of the rest of the workforce that wants at least hybrid, if not full remote.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
And I think businesses should embrace that and allow for it.
Yeah. All right. Hey, thank you to Gary.
Spindrift is not a sponsor of this podcast, but
No.
if they'd like to, I'm sure Taylor would take your money.
I mean, yeah.
Or your
if we got
soda.
sponsored by a cool drink, that would be cool.
There you go.
But definitely, that's not going to happen. Okay.
To the passion fruit orange guava.
High rating. Cheers to the. Cheers to you. Hey, thanks, dude. That was awesome.